So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our next speaker, who is Wendy Lowe. Wendy Lowe is going to be talking to us today about how do I become a patient advocate. She is a patient herself who turned into an advocate for hepatitis B elimination and liver health. She shares her lived experience to increase awareness, promote education, tackle stigma, influence policy, and support research. She is an educator and a wellness coach. And in her 20-plus year experience in the Silicon Valley, she is a high-tech professional whose work falls at the intersection of education, technology, and innovation. She's held a variety of positions in education, program management, and information technology, consulting at various software companies. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Economy of Industrialized Societies that came from the University of California, Berkeley. Wendy resides in the San Francisco Bay Area with her spouse, 2 children, and a rescue dog. So I'd like to welcome to the podium Wendy Lowe.
Is this showing? Okay. Just get set up. Do you recall a time when something happened to you that changed the trajectory of your life? Perhaps you didn't know it then, but looking back now, you can see that it was consequential. For me, the year was 1994. I was a senior in college. I was getting ready to study abroad in China, and I went in to get a medical screening. I found out I tested positive for hepatitis B. I graduated, but I did not study abroad. My dream to launch a new venture in China was crushed. I was originally born in mainland China, and I immigrated to and grew up in San Francisco. I was transmitted hepatitis B at birth, from mother to infant, which is most common. Hepatitis B causes inflammation and over time can destroy the liver. I'm really honored to be here to talk about this topic. How do I become a patient advocate? I've organized my talk into 2 parts. 1, my liver story, my experience of living with hepatitis B. And 2, becoming an advocate, why I got involved, what are some ways to engage. By liver, I'm not just talking about the organ. So this is not just a medical story. I'm talking about the person who's alive. You, me, all of us here. It's a person-centered story. It's a holistic story. And one more thing, I'm here to share my story here. What I invite is for you to engage and reflect on your own experience. If I were to organize, if my story is a book, here are the chapter headings by decade after my diagnosis. In my 20s, I was told to monitor. There was no treatment available. I did for a while, and then I stopped. I didn't have physical symptoms. What was really top of mind for me dealing with hepatitis B was drinking, dating. In my 30s, I started medication right when I got a checkup. This is also the time when I started a family. As a mother with 2 young kids, I would worry. I worry because I know people die in their 30s and 40s. So that's when I prioritized to start living a healthy lifestyle. In my 40s, I would characterize it as things falling apart and then putting it back together. I have a loved one who was in decline because of liver cirrhosis and passed from liver cancer. This is also the same time when I was diagnosed with liver cirrhosis. Then you add in other life challenges and other things that get in the way. That was the perfect storm to create a tailspin for me. Luckily, I got help for my mental health challenges. And today, I can say I do not have liver cirrhosis. Throughout these years, decades, I've been living with hepatitis B in silence. I experienced fear, shame, isolation, and self-stigma. In 2020, something happened. I attended this global event that Dr. Wong had talked about. I heard from a few Just Be storytellers, watched their videos, heard about their lived experience. This was the first time that I connected with others. They're going through something similar to me. I didn't know these people, but yet I felt so connected. For the first time, I did not feel alone. Wow, the gift of another story. It resonated with me so much. I felt heard, I felt seen, I felt acknowledged. I was not alone. This was a powerful experience that stayed with me. So fast forward to last year, 2022, I became a Just Be storyteller because I wanted to pay it forward. My plan was to create this video, put in some old pictures of me, toss it over the wall to the Hep B Foundation, and let them do whatever they want. I can stay anonymous. No one would have to know. Little did I know that this would be my springboard into advocacy. Last year on World Hepatitis Day, I was invited to speak. I stood behind a podium just like this, in front of a live audience and people watching virtually. This is how I'm feeling in the moment. I remember it well. As I'm speaking, I'm hearing the words that are coming up for myself. There are emotions that were stirred up. They've been pent up for so long. I was so nervous. I had the mic. I was shaking it like a maracas. I had to use my left hand to steady the mic. This was not just nerves of public speaking. Right in this moment, I am sharing my hepatitis B status publicly. I never thought that I would share this part of me. This part of me. This part of me that I felt a need to hide. I did manage to hold my composure, just like this, and get through it, because the audience is with me, like you are right now, being present, listening attentively, and just holding a kind space. It was a cathartic experience. Something was loosening inside me. It's like candle wax that's been hardened and stiff, yet can soften and melt with warmth. You know what? I gained 3 ahas, insights from this experience. One, when I step out and be vulnerable, growth happens at the edge. 2, personal stories. They benefit me, the giver, in addition to the receiver. And 3, something magical happens. Storytelling is a powerful way to connect, to express who we are and what makes us alive. Brené Brown, author of Courage, Shame, and Vulnerability, she puts it this way. Maybe stories are just data with a soul. Everyone has a story to share. So take a moment, reflect, what's coming up for you? Let me now segue to talk about advocacy. I use the word becoming because I really relate to it as a process rather than a destination. I also find it useful to frame it on a continuum for 2 reasons. One, in part to acknowledge that in some way I'm already an advocate. When I look back, I've been advocating all along, from researching the chronic condition, learning how to reinterpret the labs, navigating the healthcare system, getting a second opinion, and being a health seeker. These are all examples of self-advocacy. And 2, it's important to recognize we are not stationary on the continuum. This is dynamic. There will be times that will move more to the left and other times more to the right, depending on a lot of things, including our health condition and what else is going on in our life. So let's talk about public community advocacy, stepping to the right, and why. There are lots of ways to engage, and I'm going to offer a few examples. We can volunteer in the community at a local level. This is a great way to meet and connect. Or do it virtually. You can participate in clinical research and development, such as clinical trials, FDA listening sessions, or join a community advisory board. Provide the patient perspective and voice. Another important part is to advocate and influence public health policy. We can talk to members of staff on Capitol Hill, organize and sign online petitions, and join coalition meetings, events. One thing I'd like to invite you to do is to explore and identify where your talent might meet an unmet need. So when I found out that 1 in 12 Asian Americans are living with chronic hepatitis B, I decided to get involved with the San Francisco Hep B Free to do outreach to the Chinese-speaking population. It brought a lot of joy for me to use my bilingual skills and to relate to the immigrant experience. Just last week, by Zoom, I was actually speaking to a group of Chinese-speaking immigrants who are newcomers in Melbourne, Australia. Wow, I just felt so connected in this global village. So Dr. Sherry Cohen had said something to me once. She says, Wendy, as a patient, you bring expertise. I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? How can I bring expertise? I don't have a medical degree. When I see a hepatologist name and you see the alphabet soup that trails it, I have to Google to find out what they stand for. Yet, what she shared with me stayed. And as I got involved and more engaged with talking to different stakeholders, I come to understand what she is talking about. No one else is in a better position than the patient to be living with the disease. You see, patients bring the first-person perspective. As patients, we're like the fish in the pond. We're swimming in the pond all the time. Others might come, observe occasionally, perch by the rock. But when a pebble drops into the pond, others might see it fall in. We feel it. We experience the ripples and its aftermath. And we may be aware of what's happening beneath the surface, in places where others are not even looking. Patients bring something we already have, our lived experience. To put this another way, everything that you've been through contributes to your expertise. And to be more precise, what we contribute is informed by our lived experience. I'm talking about our perspectives, our preferences, our insights, and our wisdom. We contribute in a unique way. Patients provide data with a soul. So share your expertise. Tailor what you share depending on the stakeholder audience. This nuanced way of sharing is how we turn our lived experience into impact. This is how we step into our power as patient advocates. Now, I know it can feel vulnerable to share. Here are 3 tips that I give to myself to safely embrace vulnerability. 1, proceed at the speed of my readiness. It can feel emotionally taxing to share, so practice self-care. The aim here is to stretch, but not tear. Set up healthy boundaries, especially when it comes to disclosure. You decide what to share, how much, when, to whom. And just be okay that this may shift over time. And 3, we are stronger together, the theme of this conference. So surround yourself with a support system and offer mutual support. Now, this talk is not complete without a why. Okay. So my why, the reason I got involved in patient advocacy is hepatitis B is a marginalized disease. Simply put, I feel compelled to break my silence. So let me unpack this. There's a huge gap in the US for Hep B care. This study shows about 2 million people living with hepatitis B. Less than a third are aware. 15% have linkage to care. 4% are getting treatment. Hepatitis B is underdiagnosed, undertreated, and still without care. When I see these numbers, I actually see my story. Knowing my hepatitis B status has been consequential because I was diagnosed early, I can get treatment when I need it. My family have been vaccinated and protected, but many, many are not so lucky. And when we zoom out into the numbers globally, it's worse. Here are numbers from the CDC. There are about 296 million people living with hepatitis B. If you do the math, that's about 90% of the US population. Despite it being preventable and treatable, 820,000 people are dying every year. And I've seen numbers that put it close to 1 million. 1 in 4 are at risk for liver cancer. And based on my own lived experience, I think hepatitis B have two sides to its silence. There's a silence due to the asymptomatic disease progression. The other side is the psychosocial harm. People don't talk about hepatitis B because there's this conspiracy of silence. That is exacerbating the harm, keeping people away from seeking screening and treatment. So we have to include both sides. So when I look at the gaps in care, the global prevalence, and the psychosocial harm, and here I stand at a unique intersection. With what I have, a privilege of receiving care, and with a heart wanting to help, I just feel compelled to say and do something. This quote sums it all. If you can speak, you can influence. If you can influence, you can change lives. So, if what I've shared resonates with you, then join me and step to the right in public advocacy. If you work with or you know of someone who could relate to this, encourage them to step to the right in advocacy. And for many of you here who have been doing this public advocacy for quite some time, thank you. Thank you so much for paving the path. One thing is clear for me. There is no endeavor more purposeful, fulfilling, and noble than to walk on this path together. Thank you.
I think we're good.
Okay. This is not
Keep going.
okay.
Okay, excellent. Wendy, that was so powerful. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your strength, your wisdom, and your vulnerability.